One Jewish dude in Manchester said to me this: "You guys will never come together because you have no shared sense of purpose." And that hit me because he was fucking right.
It's the black guy in the corner.
All week we looking at the positive side of things, only looking at things from a positive standpoint, and I'm only reporting on things from a positive standpoint. And if you hear some noise in the background, apologies. Hopefully y'all can still hear me clearly, but it's about 70 degrees here in Jersey, and we haven't had this nice weather in a while, so I'm going to enjoy it a bit. However, we do have something important to talk to y'all about, and it's about purpose. And I was watching that Tyler Oliveira video, the documentary, and I believe he's done a bunch of different documentaries, but there's one recently that he did in a Jersey community of Lakewood and also up in Rockland and Muncie, in which he was talking about how he's investigating, similar to what he did with the Somalis. Let's wait for that. I promise y'all, I didn't hear anything before this. I didn't hear anything out here. It was quiet. And of course, it's them boys now. No. All right. So he was doing a documentary on how he believed that there's a certain amount of the Jewish community that are taking advantage of the welfare system, having a bunch of kids and relying on welfare tax dollars of everybody else to pay for them. And just like he did with the Somali community, I believe it was in Dearborn, Michigan, I may be mistaken, but just like that community, in which he was saying that they were exploiting and taking advantage of a lot of the welfare programs, and obviously putting more of a burden on everybody else who's not on welfare. It's coming out of their tax dollars, where they're having, 6 to 10 kids, and that creates a lot of a strain on that community. And this particular documentary, he was also going into how people move into the community. A lot of these Jewish populations move into the community. They're so tight knit. They unite. They have their own police force. That's actually funded. Volunteer police force, or I'm not sure if it's volunteer or paid, but I'm assuming that it's paid because it's funded, or paid on some level. It's funded by both federal and state, I believe he was saying. And then when it comes to the school board, a lot of people have been complaining because they've been voting to not approve certain budgets. And then what happens is those schools may get shut down, or certain programs get shut down. And in a few different cases, the schools got shut down. And then this is what Tyler was saying. All right, I'm just reporting the news. They were saying that the school was then bought for pennies on the dollar and then turned into a private school in the Jewish community. So a lot of people are complaining that a lot of the funding is going to these private schools and not going to the public schools. And these communities were largely, I believe, Irish and Italian before that. So at the end, all right, there is a positive component to this. And I believe it's one that we need to be reminded of all the time. And it's something that I've been reminded of and have had the opportunity to experience firsthand. And that's the sense of purpose that the Jewish community has and what they unite on. And I think that's something that a lot of people take for granted when it comes to how they're able to become very successful. When it comes to America, we don't have a united purpose. We don't have a culture that's built on a particular purpose. We're not living for anything in particular, right? That's just kind of American culture. It's be free. When you're free and all you want to seek is happiness, and that's what your purpose becomes, rather than the happiness coming from us actually pursuing our purpose, we're more focused on the instant gratification happiness. What's going to make me happy in the now? Forget what's going to happen down the line, because we don't feel a sense of purpose. We don't have a sense of community. We don't feel that we need to do certain things today in order not to improve our lives down the line, but to improve something bigger than just me, something greater than just me, a community. So therefore, there's more of a sense of commitment, more, definitely more unity, more family. When you look at a lot of these communities, when you have Shabbat, when you have all these things, they're centered around family. And I've gone to a Shabbat, and it's one of the most amazing things that you can do. Think about stopping everything, putting all the business to the side, putting all everything to the side, and just being with family from sundown on Friday to sundown on Saturday. Imagine what that would be, just spending time with family. A lot of us, we don't even get that when it comes to the holidays. That's something that's done every week. That is a serious commitment to community, and something that I think a lot of us can learn from and take heed from, because we can complain about what people do with the power, but we also have to look into what actually gives you that sense of power. And that's the united sense of community that a lot of the Jewish community has. We don't have that. Now, what you choose to do with that united, power and leverage, that's another conversation. But I just really want to focus on the sense of purpose. And I want to play a clip from this documentary, and then we'll get into a little bit more of this conversation based around purpose and how it relates to American culture. Let's take a look.
Practicing rampant ethno-nepotism.
Here's a problem, bro. One Jewish dude in Manchester said to me this: you guys will never come together because you have no shared sense of purpose. And that hit me because he was fucking right. Jews have a shared sense of purpose in what their outcome's gonna be. And that's to expand the religion, that's expand their people. We don't have a shared sense of purpose. We're too busy arguing with each other. We're too busy talking Trump. We're too busy yelling about ICE. We're too busy focusing on Epstein's list. We don't have a shared sense of what is America and what are we trying to accomplish together. Americans don't have a shared sense of purpose about America. Jews have a shared sense of purpose in what their outcome's gonna be. And the only way that you're gonna stop it, and the only way you can fight back about it, is by getting people that have a shared sense of purpose in the numbers that matter. Getting enough people with their eyes open to say, holy shit, something has to be done here. You have to get rid of the RLUIPA laws. I don't think it's ever been challenged by the Supreme Court. It has to be taken to the Supreme Court. I think it violates the Constitution. You have to fight fire with bigger fire. And the sad part about it is they have the biggest fires.
Now, once again, I told y'all I was going to focus on the positive aspects of it. And even when the gentleman started off and he was talking about, we're too busy focusing on this, focus on the Epstein files. Well, yeah, those things need to be addressed and people need to be held accountable. But as far as it dividing us, there should be no division around the Epstein files. It should be no, people are held accountable. Whether you're Democrat or Republican, you're for people being held accountable, and then we move forward accordingly. We don't have to spend time arguing and bickering on whether or not we should release things based on our political affiliations. We shouldn't have to do that. And then I also want to go to the end when he was saying that if their fire's bigger, then we should be able to fight fire with fire. I don't know if that lands us in the right place, as far as us feeling the need to fight and overcome. And that would be one of the challenges that I expressed when you have this united purpose that just centers around a particular group of people. It's always going to be us versus them. And that's what we've talked about over the last couple days, I believe, where when you have this us versus them mentality, and I know we've been talking about it for a while, but when you have this us versus them tribalism mentality, then you're at war. And at sometimes the war will be up here, escalated, and at sometimes the war will be here. But you're still at war. You're still competing. So I don't know if having a sense of purpose is only important based on us making sure that we're more powerful than another group. And I think that the other group doesn't necessarily have to look at it that way either. And I was talking to somebody that was going back and forth in the comments. They were calling me an anti-Semite, all these different things, just because I made the comment that I don't think that Iran would be as big of a enemy or op to us if it wasn't for our relationship with Israel. Now, would we still be trying to exploit them for oil? Perhaps. But I think that our relationship with Israel escalates that. So he's responded to me and was saying, like, based on all the things that have happened in the history of the Jewish community, of course, we're going to use. He was speaking from his perspective. He was a Jewish person. And he was saying, of course, we're going to use our leverage in order to get as much influence as we can. So therefore, we can make sure that we're protected moving forward. So it's still fear-based. And it's fear-based unity that is just to leverage a certain amount of power because we're scared in this tribalist mindset of us versus them. They see it is us versus them, so they're going to try to kill us. So therefore, how do we justify now making sure that we have as much power and we're using as much leverage and we're united? You can understand it from that standpoint, perhaps. So what is the sense of purpose based on? Is the sense of purpose based on, hey, this is our particular group, this is our tribe, and our purpose is just to make sure that our tribe does as good as possible, as successful as possible, gains as much power as possible, gains as much leverage? Because if that's the approach, then if somebody's not in that particular tribe, obviously they're going to see you as an enemy. That's how it would be. Now you're a competition. And when it comes to power, when it comes to resources and you're competing over, that enemy type of way of seeing things can escalate. That tribalism way of seeing things can escalate. So ultimately, we still end up in the same place where we started, the Crusades. Now, like I said, we can be up, down. So this crusade battle of us versus them, this religion versus that religion, this group versus that group, whatever it may be, because we're only sensing a purpose based on what my religion is. Okay, boom, that's our group. What my ethnicity is. Okay, that's my group. What my race is, that's my group. Because we're only establishing it based on that, anybody that doesn't fall into that category, we see as an enemy. I don't want to live in a world like that. I don't think that peace is ever achievable in a world like that. Peace is not, oh, there's not as much violence, but we're still against each other and it just hasn't stirred up yet. Like we're just not fighting on the front lines, but it's still a war. It's still a war. It's just hasn't escalated to a certain point. That's not peace, in my opinion. Peace is us living in harmony. That's what that greater peace represents to me. So for us to get to a point where we can live in harmony, we can't just constantly be competing with each other based on silly things like race, religion, or anything else, rather than, yo, this person has a dope character. This person has dope content. Why not establish the purpose based on that? Why not establish the purpose based on having a peaceful community? Because anything else, where do we end up? In the same place we are now, with people trying to fight and justify why they should have certain things and that group shouldn't, and why this group should be in power and that group shouldn't. That's not the positive place that I see us having the potential to land in. Now, a lot of people may hear what I'm saying and say, this isn't realistic. It's not going to happen. It's not anything that we can see coming to fruition in the near future. Well, perhaps those are the thoughts that keep us in the same place that we're in. Perhaps those are the thoughts that hold us back from maximizing our potential and leaning into becoming these advanced beings that we are. Every time we look at it as tribalism, us versus them, and we're at war, that's the primitive being. That's the animalistic nature. That's the animalistic nature. And you know what else? I shouldn't even disrespect animals from that standpoint. You want to know why? I shouldn't even disrespect animals because a lot of times we've been having this conversation and I've been saying that we're acting like animals, our animalistic nature and all these things. And then you think about nature, you think about the jungle. And somebody, I forget who I was having the conversation with. I forget, damn. And they were saying how, I'm going to remember it, but they were saying how, all the animals go to the same watering hole. They get what they need to get, grab some water, relax a little bit, and then they get out of there. The animals tend to. Now, they may have their little gang versus gang, species versus species, whatever it is, but ultimately, most of the time, animals only attack other animals when they're hungry, when they're looking for food. So I guess if I'm looking at it from this perspective, now, food is the main resource, I guess, when it comes to them. So I'm not going to be all the way out there, but it's just something interesting to think about where we don't fight necessarily over food. Now, I get it. We fight over resources. We fight over the things that ultimately put food on the table. But when I say we're going back to our animalistic nature of war and these things, animals still be beefing over territory. They still beef over territory. So I can't even say that they don't. But I was just thinking about it from that standpoint. Like, if animals are not killing over eating, would they still have the same percentage or live in these forever wars that we end up in? Because there's always, forget a forever war with Iraq or Iran. We're in a forever war when it comes to religion. As soon as we say things like this group of people is chosen, or, this is the only way in order to live with God and to carry out God's beliefs and the way that we should live. Whenever you start saying these things, it just creates a sense of tribalism. It just creates a sense of tribalism. If we're pushing anything that separates us as God's children, then how can that be the godly way to go? How can that be the godly way to go? So I think they're wrapping me up with this helicopter. Hopefully y'all can still hear me. I'll give it a second. They up there talking about like, how long you gonna be? Hey, just make sure we around. So don't slip up and do too much. Don't say too much. Yeah, sorry about that. But that's just what it comes down to. And I have no idea of how to go about solving this, creating this. But perhaps when we just put the energy out there and when we actually focus on peace rather than focusing on power and how to win battles and how to conquer, how to colonize, and all this imperialism and extortions, then perhaps we can come up with a solution. There's a lot of evil things that we do that when we start off, we don't know exactly how we're going to execute on it. But we focus on it so much that we end up coming up with some real creative ways to bring about demonic behavior. Who's to say that we can't do that when it's positive? And with the positive stuff, we got God on our side. So if God's on our side, then we should be able to accomplish anything, right? It shouldn't even be an issue. So if we could do all these demonic things without God on our side, then imagine what we can do with God on our side and leaning into that spiritual aspect. And what would God want? God would want all his children to be moving along, getting along, I should say, living in peace, living in harmony, and striving to become the best versions of ourselves. And I think the best versions of ourselves come out of love and not hate. So I guess that's just something for us to sit with. Something for us to sit with, process, and figure out how we can add more positivity to this world rather than hate, fear, and everything associated with all these negative things that end up getting us in a place where we see everybody instead of as our brothers and sisters, but as our enemies and ops. So I'll leave it there with y'all. Y'all let me know what y'all think, as always. Maybe I'm off. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Y'all know my biases and experiences, maybe creating some blind spots for me to where I'm not seeing things full picture, period. And I'm trying to focus on being positive this week, trying something new. Once again, nothing's off the table when it comes to what I'm willing to try to do, what I'm willing to do, and what role I'm willing to play in order to get us closer to that goal of achieving the greater peace and living in harmony. So I'm trying something. What are you willing to try? All right, I'll see you on the next video. Oh, these are dirty. Should have cleaned these before. It is what it is, though.
It's the black guy in the corner, but they'd rather see a nigga on the corner. They say I'm stealing Nick's clips like I'm stealing Nick's chick, not knowing that I hit him first week for the lick. I said, Nick, I could post here while you post there. Let's run the ads up, then let's meet up over there. Let's figure out a split that's honorable and fair. Tell me where you trying to take it, bro, I'll meet you there.